This is the BioCentury Show. Brought to you by the 3rd East-West Biopharma Summit in Singapore. This March, explore how smart money is fueling the growth of the life sciences ecosystem and connect with key players across Asia's innovation arc, from India to Japan.
Hello and welcome to the BioCentury Show. I am Simone Fishburne, Editor-in-Chief at BioCentury, and I'm joined today by Khoo Shih, CEO of Singapore investment firm ClavystBio, which is an affiliate of the global investment company Temasek, and it was launched last year. We'll talk more about that. Khoo Shih has over 20 years of experience investing in private and public life sciences and healthcare companies globally. During her career at Temasek, she successfully grew the life sciences portfolio and led biopharma and early stage innovation investments and strategies. Now, Khoo Shih is not only part of the founding team that conceived and formed ClavystBio, but for those who don't know, she is a key figure in Singapore and a driving force behind the growth of its biotech ecosystem. We're going to talk a little bit about that in this conversation. But Khoo Shih, I want to start with getting to know a little bit more about you, because there's not many people who've done what you've done. Inside Asia, of course, you're a major figurehead in the biotech investment community. So I want to go a little bit further back, though, and ask you about your own personal journey. So what were the forces that led you to where you are, and what are your priorities now?
Well, Simone, thank you. Pleasure to be here and great to have the opportunity to be on the BioCentury Show today. Maybe talk, like I said, I would love to talk a little bit about my own journey. So I was trained as a scientist in the US. I did my PhD at UT Southwestern. It really has been a very insightful early research journey for me. I returned to Singapore and started my early career, as you pointed out, at the Singapore Economic Development Board, EDB. I was very fortunate to join at the time, early 2000, when the Singapore government really embarks on a journey to shape life sciences, biomedical sciences, to one of the core pillars of economic growth. So as part of the team at EDB, to really spearhead the growth of the healthcare life sciences industry, and really got to witness how the policies, into investments, research, talent development is not shaped by EDB, but in a collaboration across the government agencies. As you mentioned, subsequently, opportunity brought me actually by chance into investing. And I spent the majority of my career, 20 years in life sciences investing. I first started my investing journey at a local venture capital fund that focuses on China and South Asia. It's really that really opens my eyes to really life sciences companies' innovations, although very early stage, coming out from China and Asia. And then I spent, as you pointed out, 16 years in Temasek. Now, when I joined Temasek is also really at a journey of growth from an Asian investor to become a global investor, and also investing along 4 major key trends, of which one of them is longer lifespans, and life sciences is a major beneficiary and driver. And because of that, I got to see life sciences investing across the globe, multiple countries, US, China, India, Europe, the rest of Asia, across the different stages, growth, early, public, and private equities. And again, the opportunity to witness how life science innovations can make an impact, into the industry, and also investing in very passionate entrepreneurs and founders. And that's where it brought me to ClavystBio. Seeing what we see, the experience and the innovation and investing, and that really also contribute to why I'm here today at ClavystBio as the CEO.
So let's talk a little bit about ClavystBio, which, as I said, you founded it last year to nurture and build globally competitive companies in Singapore. So what created that idea? And, what do you feel are like the main holes that it's trying to fill in that ecosystem?
So Simon, the concept of ClavystBio was first conceived in Temasek probably about 2018 and 2019, and it's really driven by a confluence of factors and opportunities. First of all, I mentioned Temasek as the life sciences team. We are investing globally with building our networks, really observing how innovation is rising around the world, including in Asia, really driven by increased investments into R&D and talents. And yet, we notice that a lot of these innovations are not translated into health impact in Singapore and Asia. And one of the major attribution is that the ecosystem and the infrastructure is still nascent. So with that in mind, a project team is formed within Temasek, led under the leadership of Fida Alsagov, who is the head of life sciences, chairman of ClavystBio today, and have been my long-term mentor. And together with a project team that becomes a founding team, that includes Michelle Ivarasto, which is today the COO of ClavystBio, we put our heads together and we put to work and shaped and crafted the ClavystBio vision and plan today. So the name of ClavystBio really embodies that vision. Clav, which is key in Latin, and the word YST takes part of the word from catalyst. As we see, ClavystBio is to be the keystone and the catalyst that will bring together people, ideas, networks, capabilities, not just in Singapore and around the world, and to catalyze life science innovation and to be able to build global life sciences champions starting in Singapore. And the opportunity comes about for me to lead ClavystBio, really allows me to bring my experiences and also my passion to make an impact on health, and also to make a difference and contribution to Singapore and to enable Singapore to become a global life sciences translational hub. I mentioned quickly today, ClavystBio is still young. We've been launched since 2022. We have put together a great team backed by a very engaged board that draws upon global life sciences operational and investing experience, chaired by Fida Alsagov. We have the likes of Amy Schumann, Vicky Sato, Ranga Krishnan, Ken Elliott, and Steve Krockness, and advisors Amy Abernathy and Bob Langer. ClavystBio is really well set up with such a strong board and advisory. And I'll end off by saying the vision of ClavystBio again, as quoting our chairman. ClavystBio is about bringing Singapore to the world and the world to Singapore.
So I'm going to dig down into that a little bit because, we cover hubs and the emergence of hubs a lot. And over the years, I've spoken with people in New York, and I've spoken with people in San Diego and the UK and Belgium, and we've watched China emerge. Mm-hmm. And there's many places all over the world. I mean, we know that Boston and San Francisco are the core hubs, but frankly, outside of there, it's a broad competition. And, people struggle with it. A lot of places have good translation. And I wanted to ask you in terms of the vision, some places what you have is really strong science. Some places you have bellwethers, maybe not proliferation of science, but a few really core companies. And, and in others, you have a very, a strong financial center. So do you have a sense of the sort of brand that Singapore can be and why people in the West we'll talk about the fact that they have started paying attention, but we'll get there afterwards. What do you think will be the globally competitive pull for Singapore?
Yeah, well, Simon, this is a fantastic question. And that also speaks to, as ClavystBio is formed by the founding team, also by our shareholder, Temasek, we really look hard into the ingredients and the substrates that we can leverage out of Singapore. And let me talk about it in 4 broad areas, which we'll feel that are important substrates that will shape and drive the Singapore's translational activities, and of course, where ClavystBio play a very important role. The 4 factors, as you talk about, is the science and the innovation, the people, the health infrastructure, and of course, the capital. Let me start off with talking about the science and innovation. So the government has really invested more than $20 billion into nurturing and cultivating basic and translational life science research and talent development over the last 20 years. And today, we're proud to say that several of our research institutions, the likes of A*STAR, National University of Singapore NUS, Duke NUS, and the healthcare institutions has reached a global standing on life science research and output. We notice that the life science patents being filed in the last 10 years has more than doubled. So we are really a good momentum. And on top of that, we can call out really research scientific excellence, in different groups. Just name a few researchers just to take on that point. Professor Daryl Campana, who is the world expert in T-cell biology, and under his belt, his technologies has born 3 companies, of which one, Medisix, is one of company that is being born and started in Singapore, led by Lightstone Ventures and supported by ClavystBio. Professor Wang Lingfa of Duke NUS, he spent his career studying bat biology, immunology, impact on infectious disease, and today, Lingfa's research also has contributed to many companies, of which 2 of them, Purata Sciences and Cove Bio, are also investments of ClavystBio, as well as our strategic partner, Polaris. And of course, the likes of Stuart Cook, he has a lot of work done on interleukin-11. He formed a company at Leofen that actually has a strategic takeout for Boehringer Ingelheim 2 years ago. So we see that the scientific excellence and maturity has increased. But on top of that, for life sciences, Singapore also has a concerted effort and excellence in other related areas: computer science, material science, engineering. That's cross-disciplinary that will have an impact on life sciences and biotech. So that's on scientific excellence. And we are seeing more innovations. More than half of our investments today from ClavystBio really leverages on innovations and ideas that comes out from the local institutions. And we can talk more about that later on. The second part is people. Singapore has a very concerted effort to nurture and groom scientific and clinical talents. Just A*STAR alone, that has supported more than 1,000 PhDs to the top US and UK universities to study life sciences, science and engineering. And the National Medical Research Council has many supporting awards and fellowship to support clinician scientists. Today, many of such recipients and scholars has returned back to Singapore, and they have continued to make an impact. The likes of Professor Xiaohui Lin, which is trained in Harvard and MIT, today a professor in NUS for School of Biomedical Engineering. She's a founder of one of our portfolio companies, Sunbird Bio. Yan Chuan Dan, co-founder and CEO of NuvoCore, also a company that counted Boehringer Ingelheim Venture Fund and ClavystBio as investors. And many others that continue to make not just impact, but also passionate and interested to make translational efforts and create startup companies. So that's the second front on people. I think maybe just to throw a statistics which I looked out is that that's published by the government that today the researcher intensity of Singapore, we counted about 12 PhDs per 1,000 workforce, and believe a number that is close to what we see in North America and European countries, which really speaks to the very concerted effort to grow homegrown talents, but also bring in international talents to Singapore. The third one is really healthcare infrastructure. Healthcare institutions in Singapore has reached global standing and well respected for their clinical excellence. National Cancer Center of Singapore, the Eye Research Center. But there's also a very concerted effort of one of these population health-based initiatives. Singapore Ministry of Health has embarked on the National Precision Health Initiative, of which PRECISE is an entity that really looks into building a genomics and clinical data biobank. They started the journey. They already have 10,000 genomes of Singaporean population. Singapore population is quite representative of Asia, primarily of Chinese, Indians, and Malays. Now they are embarked in their second phase, which is 100,000 healthy individuals and 50,000 diseased individuals that will not just collect genomics data, but link to electronic health records. And on the third phase, this particular database will be ramped up to 10% of the Singapore population, which is close to 500,000. And that will also collect not just genomics, clinical, but lifestyle data. We see this particular Asian genomics and clinical database to be able to be an important foundation that can provide new insights, data insights that will not just benefit clinicians, researchers, but can enable and accelerate translation where local company startups can leverage on, which I think this is a very important part. And the last one, capital. I think over time, the type of capital and also the life science experience capital has also grown. Mentioned about Temasek setting out ClavystBio to be a focused life sciences investor. We collaborated and brought in partners, Polaris, Lightstone Ventures, Accelerator Life Science Partners. But not just these partners, we also seen many other investors setting out a presence in Singapore. The likes of Novo, Flagship, Cedars-Sinai started out a Singapore-based fund and also invested alongside us in Engine Bio, Qiming, Life, the great work of Enterprise Singapore, who really nurture all this global relationship and brought in these funds. Strategics such as J&J created their first J-Labs program, and they supported the first cohort of startups last year. Roche, Starfinder Diagnostic, and of course today, Singapore is home to already many global pharma and medtech companies as a manufacturing base, the good work of the Singapore Economic Development Board. So with all these funds and strategic presence, as Simon, you pointed out, people are paying attention. And of course, I want to call out that, BioCentury is setting your first East-West conference in Singapore in March. It's probably also, I call it out as a recognition that is, there are much more activities and the growth momentum in Singapore is catching on.
Thank you. That was such a full answer. We're going to dig into a couple more of the points that you made, but first of all, let's take a very short break. Thank you.
This March, BioCentury, Bay Helix, and Insights partner McKinsey & Company bring the third East-West Biopharma Summit to Singapore, the gateway to Asia. At the summit, you will get a first-hand look at how the smart money pouring into Singapore plans to scale up the emerging life sciences ecosystem. You will also meet the key players from Asia's innovation arc, from India through Southeast Asia to China, Korea, and Japan. If you are a biopharma executive looking for partners or investors, or a life sciences investor looking for portfolio companies or limited partners, now's the time to meet Asia leaders face-to-face in Singapore. Register today at biocenturyeastwest.com.
Hello, welcome back to the BioCentury Show, where I'm delighted to be in conversation with Khoo Shih from Singapore's ClavystBio. Khoo Shih, we know that there's a lot of interest from, very banner organizations and venture firms such as Polaris, Flagship Ventures, Lightstone, Novo. I also want to move to something new that was recently announced called 65 Lab. And I know that you've talked about public-private partnerships and the importance of collaborations in driving the ecosystem, the biopharma ecosystem in Singapore. Maybe you can tell us about how this idea for 65 Lab came together and what its goals are.
Happy to, Simon. So the idea of 65 Labs is really an accumulation of factors. We are noticing that there is a lot of innovation coming out of Singapore, but these researchers are still also hungry for mentorship and guidance to mature this project to a stage that's just more ready to be spin off. With that in mind, 65 Labs is really created with the intent bringing together a consortium of strategic partners and investors that can identify these projects, identify these promising researchers, clinicians who are hungry to take the translational work into ultimately spin-offs. So the consortium is formed with Evotech as a strategic partner and also leveraging on their Bridges program they have started many years in other parts of the world, have enjoyed good success. We also bring in a consortium of fellow investors. We have great partners, Lightstone Ventures, Polaris, Lips by Bayer, together with ClavystBio to be a consortium of venture investors that will evaluate the commercial and the competitiveness of these projects for the opportunity of future spin-off. And then we approach several of our local research institutions who has now today, 3 of them has signed on, National University of Singapore, Duke NUS, as well as A-STAR. And we're also talking to a number of other research and healthcare institutions who are so eager to be part of this particular project. Now, with 65 Labs launch in October last year, and Evotech also have an expert in residence in Singapore, co-locating with ClavystBio team. He has been actively talking to researchers, approached by scientists eager to find out how to be part of this program. We are actively looking at a number of projects, and very soon we hope to be able to fund this with the intention to build and further nurture the innovation pipeline in Singapore and create biotech startups together with a consortium of global investors.
So we've historically followed public-private partnerships, and they're difficult, right? So, has it got concrete goals? How will it measure its own success, this 65 Lab?
Well, the 65 Labs will be looking at funding projects, number of projects, with ultimately the spin-off of a number of biotech companies in the next 3 to 5 years. On average, each of the project will take about 18 to 24 months to mature. This is what also Evotech has seen in other Bridges programs. Yes, the success of this is that we will fund several of these programs and we will end off spinning off a number of companies in 3 to 5 years' time. And we're excited about this because we really see high quality projects and very eager researchers and scientists who are eager to be part of this.
Right. And it's absolutely, the case, Evotech is a German company. You've got Leaps by Bayer in there. You've got a lot of international presence. So it's very clear that there's momentum. And as you pointed out, BioCentury is doing our East-West conference in Singapore in March. And we're all very excited about that. I think we also, have to acknowledge, let's talk about earlier, we talked about the difficulties of creating a hub, and you have a tremendous amount of really quality science, but, turning that into companies is the next stage. So what do you have all this experience, global experience in biotech, you've seen it. What do you think is going to be the hardest part of making the vision a reality?
Oh, first of all, I think we recognize that, there will always be challenges.
Always be challenges. So
building and starting companies, I think it comes back to where ClavystBio focus and strategy. We talk about we are a life sciences focused investor. We want to be very hands-on, close partners to our passionate entrepreneurs and founders to help them create companies that with solving global problems and also with a global outreach. Did I mention that we also want to really focus on first-in-class science and breakthroughs? And you'll notice that from the 65 Lab partnership and several of our portfolio companies, we partner and bring in life sciences international investors very early from day one. That's important because it's not just about capital, it's because they also bring networks to talents and capabilities and ultimately market access. So maybe let me talk about one example or a number of examples of our portfolio companies on how we back great science, passionate people, but also partner global investors from day one, and how that companies and walk the journey together with the companies on their growth path. A prime example is ClavystBio. I mentioned just now Xiao Huiling, being an A-star scholar, she returned to Singapore. She runs her own lab. And she's very passionate about her technology. So she developed a proprietary technology that looks at being able to detect protein aggregates on exosomes that using blood that can really be used for early detections for neurodegenerative disease such as Alzheimer's. So her early research, published in top journals, we spoke to her and we got very excited and we connected them very early to Polaris. Amy Schumann, Alexandra Catley. When they spoke to Huiling, they were really intrigued and excited by her science, but also her passion. And together, working with Polaris, ClavystBio is formed and created. Now, the R&D team in Singapore, Huiling being a scientific founder, leveraging Polaris network in the US, John McDonald, which is an experienced diagnostic operator and company builder, is brought in as an executive chairman to drive and lead the company, but also provide close mentorship to Huiling and the team in Singapore. Now, last year, Sunbird merged with ClavystBio, another Polaris and Temasek portfolio company that brings in complementary technology, as well as being able to give Sunbird a foothold into the US to allow them to further their clinical development and validation, and also ultimately market access. So I think this is how you see it about taking good science, even though it's originating in Singapore, but the talent, the management, and the problem we are solving, and also the presence is global. And then that's very important as we look into growing and scaling Singapore companies. Now, question.
Well, I was actually just going to go in this direction because we only have a couple of minutes left. But you've definitely tapped into one of the most important themes, which is talent and the expectations. And it looks like you have a lot of strategy. I'll tell you, it also looks like you know every single researcher in Singapore is what it sounds like. But you've talked a little bit about Western VCs leveraging their connections, and it sounds like there's a sort of impetus to recruit experienced management teams from the West. Is that correct? And I wanted to know whether you think that other places in Asia, Singapore will sort of become a hub. The success maybe of China companies might yield benefits as well in terms of talent for Singapore. How are you looking at Singapore as a hub also in Asia?
Yeah, well, I mean, Singapore historically has been positioned and seen as a hub, in Asia and connectivity to global. And we do partner with, we see a lot of innovations and talents that's being built out, as you pointed out, in China, but also in other parts of Asia, Australia, Japan, Korea, probably more of the innovation, but also as more of their innovation mature, you also have the C-suite talents. So we will see a lot of opportunities to collaborate with not just Chinese companies, perhaps also with Japanese, Koreans, and Australian innovations, and to leverage on that. Maybe one thing we will want to highlight is just a quick example where the innovations are not necessarily coming from Singapore. We actually leverage on talents beyond Singapore. Automera is a company that are founded with two founders where they started their journey in Australia. And part of the science is also from Australian research. So Automera, founded by two founders, Long Wang and Zhiyang Zhang, and both of them are actually trained in computer science, successful deep tech and fintech entrepreneurs who are educated in Australia. They come to Singapore and decided that they want to apply their knowledge and capabilities into biotech. So Automera is founded to be able to leverage on AI, computational chemistry, quantum molecular dynamics, lots of technology to apply to create novel drugs that can target the autophagy degradation pathway. AISP, another of our strategic partner from US, recognize this potential, and together with ClavystBio, we pull that around, but AISP also as a management team go deeply and be part of the management team as CEO and CMO to work in together with the co-founders to create and to drive the next phase of growth for Atomera. So that's really another example that we are drawing talents and capabilities in Asia.
That's really interesting. So it really seems that there's a sort of two-way process going on, and a lot of very you've name-checked quite a lot of innovative science actually in the course of this interview. So I think that we actually have to end it there. We're just about out of time. I'm very much looking forward to seeing you in person in Singapore in March, and to watching how this ecosystem unfolds and develops, with the amount of energy that's going into it. Thank you.
Thanks, Simon. Look forward to seeing you in March. Glad to be here.
Brought to you by the 3rd East-West Biopharma Summit in Singapore. This March, explore how smart money is fueling the growth of the life sciences ecosystem and connect with key players across Asia's innovation arc, from India to Japan.